Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic has approved a law that guarantees the rights and duties for the use of Internet in the world.
Com a palavra, a Presidenta da República, Dilma Rousseff.
Good morning to one and all. I would like to thank those who spoke before me for perfectly pronouncing good morning in Portuguese, bom dia, as voiced by our dear representative from Africa, Nina Newakama. Thank you very much for perfectly pronouncing bom dia in Brazilian Portuguese. Good morning. And by greeting her, I would like to extend my greetings to all women who are currently active on the web, both the girls and the guys who are equally active on the web. Greetings likewise to the mayor of São Paulo, who has so kindly welcomed us. And above all, I would like to, first of all, greet two members of Congress from Brazil, namely Mr. Alessandro Molon, representing the House of Representatives, who served as rapporteur of the bill of law which led up to the passing yesterday of the Internet Civil Framework Law, as well as Senator Walter Pinheiro. And through him, I would like to further extend my greetings likewise to the Senate rapporteurs who were able to pass the piece of law in a record time. Senator Rego, Senator Hella, and Senator Ferraz. Thank you. And to Senator Pinheiro and to Representative Moron, I would like to voice my thanks for your efforts in passing the Internet Civil Framework. Greetings likewise to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Hu Huangbo. Greetings, special greetings likewise to the inventor of the Internet, Kim Berners-Lee. I would also like to greet the Vice President of Google and a key person in the establishment of the Internet, Mr. Cerf. Greetings once again to Mr. Khan Fadisherade, who on October the 8th last year, 2013, correct, Fadi? If I'm not mistaken, we met in Brasilia, and on that occasion, during that meeting with you, the seminal idea surfaced of establishing this Internet governance summit meeting as is materialized today. So thank you very much to all of you, including cabinet ministers and foreign delegates attending this session today. May I also use the opportunity to greet all cabinet ministers who have been actively involved in the process that led up to the passing of the Internet Governance Civil Framework, an effort which of course involved all stakeholders in society. Special thanks to Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Figueiredo, Minister of Justice Cardoso, also Minister of Communications, Paulo Bernardo, Minister of Science and Technology, Querelio Diniz, and may I also greet and thank Senator and Minister of Culture, Marta Suplicy, as well as the Brazilian Secretary General of the Presidency's Office, Gilberto Carvalho. Greetings likewise to all attendees, particularly the media professionals, journalists, photographers, and cameramen and women. May I say that you are all most welcome to Brazil as attendees to this global multi-sectoral meeting on the future of Internet governance, the so-called Net Mundial, as we call it in Portuguese. At this point in time, I would also like to voice my greetings to the organizers, i.e. the Internet Management or Managing Committee, as well as the OneNet Committee. It gives me great joy to see in this plenary hall representatives of all different sectors who or which are in one way involved in the Internet governance. In this hall today, we have civil society, academia, members of the technical committee, or rather technical community, businesses, and governments at large. This healthy diversity, and I stress it is a healthy diversity, is also a hallmark of those groups that have joined us through the Internet in this meeting. And I would like to use the opportunity today to establish a dialogue on the issues and the purposes that bring us together in Sao Paulo today. Back in mid-2013, when the revelation surfaced on the comprehensive mechanisms for spying and collective monitoring of communications, caused anger and repudiation in vast circles of public opinion, both in Brazil and in the world at large. In Brazil, citizens, companies, diplomatic representations, and even the presidency of the Republic itself were targeted and their communications intercepted. These events are not acceptable, were not acceptable in the past, and remain unacceptable today in that they are an affrontment against the very nature of the Internet as a democratic, free, and pluralistic platform. The Internet we want is only possible in a scenario where human rights are respected, particularly the right to privacy and to one's freedom of expression. Accordingly, in my address to the 68th General Assembly of the United Nations, I put forth a proposal to tackle such practices. I then proposed a discussion on establishing a global civil framework for Internet governance and use, as well as measures to ensure actual protection of data that travel through the Internet. Also, working together with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, we submitted to the United Nations a draft resolution on the right to privacy in the digital age. By consensus, the resolution was passed as proposed, and we also passed a call for states to discontinue any arbitrary or illegal collection of personal data and to enforce users' rights to privacy. I should actually stress the fact that the same rights that people are entitled to offline or in the offline world should be likewise protected on the online world. This meeting today, Net Mundial, provides further momentum to that effort. This meeting also lives up to a global yearning as we propose changes in the current state of affairs and for an ongoing, consistent strengthening of freedom of expression on the Internet, as well as efforts to ultimately protect basic human rights, as is the case of one's right to privacy. And without a shadow of a doubt, that is also the case of one's right to proper treatment of web-based discussions in a respectful fashion so as to ensure its democratic, open nature. We have all come to São Paulo, therefore, with a shared purpose, the purpose of enhancing and democratizing Internet governance by means of consensus building. And I mean consensus around principles and on a roadmap to be developed for its future evolution. A point that I'd like to make plain and clear is that the idea here is not, of course, to replace for the countless fora out there that already address the topic or the matter at hand today. The idea, rather, is to lend a new momentum to the ongoing discussions in a much-needed sense of urgency. We therefore work from two premises or key assumptions. The first such premise is that we all want to protect the Internet as a democratic space available to and used by all, as a shared asset and as such truly heritage of humankind, more than simply a work tool and way beyond its well-known contribution for economic growth, provided, of course, that it be increasingly inclusive in nature. The fact is that the Internet has enabled the constant reinvention of the way people and institutions interact, produce culture, and organize themselves, even politically. An open and decentralized network architecture favors greater access to knowledge. It helps make communications more democratic and also fosters constant innovation. These basic features are the features that we want and that should be preserved under any circumstances and in any scenario in order to ultimately guarantee the future of the Internet and thus boost its transformative effects for and in societies. The second premise or assumption is the desire we all share to incorporate an increasingly broader audience into this process. Our commitment to an open and inclusive debate has guided the efforts to organize this meeting in Sao Paulo today. All different walks of life have taken part in its preparation and are duly represented in this plenary hall today. We are talking about thousands of participants from all over the world who are joined by virtual connections in several different points of the planet. The topics to be discussed have been the subject of broad and prior international public consultation and have received inputs from players or stakeholders located in several different countries and in different geographies. These proposals, in turn, or inputs, have served as the foundation to develop a draft document, the draft document to be discussed and further enhanced here in the next few days. I would like to welcome the work conducted by the Executive Multi-Sectoral Committee as well as the High-Level Multi-Sector Committee for this joint effort. The interest of Brazilians in the Internet is reflected on the substantial participation of Brazilian nationals in the domestic public consultation as fostered by the Participa.br web portal. At this point in time, civil society is organized in this forum, the so-called Net Mundial Arena, which is the Brazilian locus for access to today's sessions. May I remind all the ladies and gentlemen and friends attending this session that Brazil advocates that Internet governance should be multi-sectoral, multilateral, democratic, and transparent in nature. It is our view that the multi-sectoral model is the best way to exercise Internet governance. Very much in accordance with that view, our local governance system, which has been in operation for 20 years, has relied on actual participation of representatives from civil society, members of academia, the business community, and the government at large at the Internet Governance or at the Internet Management Committee. Fully in line with what I just said, I also attach a great deal of importance to the multilateral perspective, according to which government participation should occur on an equal footing among governments in such a way as to ensure that no country will have or bear greater weight vis-à-vis other countries. Our advocacy of the multilateral model is the natural consequence of an elementary principle that should govern today's international relations as enshrined in the Brazilian Federal Constitution. I'm talking about equality among states. We therefore see no opposition whatsoever between the multilateral and the multi-sectoral nature of the Internet. Actually, the opposite of that would be an one-sided unilateral Internet, which is untenable. An Internet that is ultimately subject to intergovernmental arrangements that exclude other sectors of society is not democratic. Multi-sectoral Arrangements that are in turn subject to oversight by one or few states are not acceptable either. We truly want to make relations between government and societies more democratic, as well as the relations among governments. We want more, not less, democracy. The task of providing a global dimension to the organizations that are currently responsible for central functions of the Internet is not only necessary but also an unpostponable task. The complexity of the transition at hand, which on the one hand involves jurisdictional competence as well as accountability and an agreement with multiple stakeholders, does not nevertheless make it less urgent a task. That is why I'd like to again welcome the recently voiced intention of the United States government to replace its institutional linkage with the authority for, or with the Internet Authority for Number Assignment, IANA, and the Internet Corporation for Names and Number Assignment, ICANN, by a global management of these institutions. From now onwards, a new institutional and legal arrangement of the ISDN under the responsibility of IANA and ICANN should be built in such a way as to include broad-ranging involvement of all sectors that have an interest in the matter, way beyond the traditional stakeholders or players. Each sector, of course, performs different roles based on likewise differentiated responsibilities. The operational management of the Internet should continue being led by its technical community. May I at this point voice my public recognition, and I do so on behalf of my government, to these people who devote their time and energy on a day-to-day basis to keeping the Internet as an open, stable, and secure platform, a key effort which remains largely invisible in the eyes of most of us and users. Matters pertaining to sovereignty, such as cybercrime, breach of rights, economic issues or transnational economic issues, and threats of cyber attacks are the primary responsibility of states. The task at hand is above all to ensure that states will have at their avail the tools that will allow them to fulfill their responsibilities before their citizens, to include the guarantee of fundamental rights. Rights which are ensured offline should be equally ensured online. These rights thrive under the shelter and not in the absence of the state. In order for the global Internet governance to be truly democratic, mechanisms are required to enable greater participation of developing countries in all different sectors. The matters that are in the interest of these countries, that are the heavy-duty users of the Internet, topics such as, for example, expanding connectivity, accessibility, and respect to diversity, should be central on the international agenda. It is not enough for fora to be open from a purely formal standpoint. We must further identify and remove the visible and invisible barriers to actual participation of the entire population of every country. Or else we would be ultimately restricting or limiting the democratic role and the social and cultural reach of the Internet. The effort at hand further requires that the Internet Governance Forum be further strengthened as a dialogue forum capable of producing results and recommendations. It also requires a comprehensive, broad-ranging review of the 10 years following the World Summit meeting of Information Society, as well as a deeper discussion on ethics and privacy at the UNESCO level. Given the above, may I say that we are strong believers that the cyberspace, and I'm sure that belief is shared by all of you, the cyberspace should be the territory of trust, human rights, citizenship, collaboration, and peace. To achieve these objectives, we must agree on basic principles that will ultimately guide Internet governance. As regards privacy, the resolution passed by the United Nations organization was an important step in the right direction, but we still have much progress to make. Any data collection or treatment should only be carried out with full agreement of the parties involved or as legally provided for. However, the discussion on principles is much more comprehensive. It should, and I stress, it should include universal internet access, which is absolutely key for the web to serve as a tool for human and social development, so as to ultimately help build inclusive, non-discriminatory societies. It should also include freedom of expression and network neutrality as a sine qua non condition. Brazil has its contributions to make following a broad-ranging discussion, domestic process that has ultimately led to the passing of the Internet Civil Framework Act, as passed yesterday by Congress, in which I had the honor of sanctioning just a few minutes ago. The law, and may I quote Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who viewed the law as a present to the web on the occasion of its 20th or 25th anniversary. As such, the law clearly shows the feasibility and the success of open, multi-sectoral discussions, as well as the innovative use of the Internet as part of ongoing discussions as a tool and an interactive discussion platform. I think it is fair to say that the process that led up to the Civil Framework Act can be described as a virtuous process, in that our civil framework, as it currently stands, has been even further appreciated given the process that preceded the efforts to establish it as such. May I therefore call to mind that our civil framework establishes principles, guarantees, and user rights, clearly assigning duties and responsibilities of the different stakeholders and government agencies on an online environment. And equally important, it enshrines network neutrality as a key principle, a major gain which we were able to materialize as a consensus in the process. It enshrines network neutrality by establishing that telecommunications companies should treat any data packages on an egalitarian fashion without any distinction whatsoever by content, origin, destination, service, terminal, or application. The law or framework as such has truly enshrined network neutrality. Furthermore, companies may not block, monitor, filter, or analyze the content of data packages. The civil framework protects citizens' privacy not only in their relations with the government, but also in their relations with the internet companies. Communications are by definition non-violable except by a specific court order to that effect. The recently passed law further contains clear-cut rules governing withdrawal of content from the internet, always, of course, with a view to ensuring that the applicable court orders be available. The civil network is an example of the fact that the internet development cannot do without a discussion process and the involvement of national states. As such, it stands as an innovative benchmark milestones, because in its development process, we heard the voices of the streets, the networks, and of different institutions. For all of the above, it is our firm conviction that on a network, each node matters. The large nodes, such as the mega portals to which a substantial amount of world traffic converges, and small nodes are equally important. At this time, I'd like to bring to the fore a key fundamental issue. I'm talking about the fact that this country has taken a major step forward as part of the ongoing process whereby we not only include but also guarantee a steady stream of income to a substantial share of the population. Income and access are equally important. We believe that it is equally important to ensure we have in place a society where citizens have their own views and they're able to voice their views freely. Hence, the invaluable degree of importance we attach to the internet in our society. We also have yet another major asset. I'm talking about Brazil's ethnic, cultural, political, and religious diversity. It is ours to not only respect but also promote and foster our cultural diversity. We do not wish to impose beliefs, customs, values, or political views on anyone. May I particularly highlight the thousands of users that multiply on a day-to-day basis, not only here, but in all developing countries, in the outskirts of large urban centers, and also in traditional communities out there. All of these new users enrich the network with new alternative ideas and accounts of the world, new world visions. These people make the internet a stronger and more universal platform. And it is on their behalf and because of them that I would like to again voice my thanks to all of you for attending this meeting in São Paulo. For us, the internet is a modern-day pro-emancipation, pro-transformation tool that changes society. Sweeping changes are introduced through the internet. You are all most welcome, and I hope you will all come back for the World Cup of all cups, or if not, make sure you watch it through the internet. Thank you very much again.
Senhoras e senhores, agradecemos a presença.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for the presence of you all. We close now this ceremony.